Hello, and you're listening to Nate's Notes. I'm one of your hosts, Nate Jones, and with me, as always, is Griffin Schuler, my co-host of Nate's Notes. How are you doing this fine evening, Griffin?
I'm doing fantastic, Nate. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's a pretty good day. It's a little warm in the place I'm recording right now, so I'm working up a sweat, but it makes me feel like I'm earning this podcast rather than the other ones where I'm just lazy. I'm really earning this podcast.
It's really being handed to you these other days.
Yep.
This one you're working for it.
Yep. This should be like a Nike commercial, me recording this podcast. Just do it. All right. With that aside, we are Nate's Notes, and we're a podcast. And we talk about sports, pop culture, and other things. And we do 2 shows a week, sometimes 3, depending if we have a special movie review like we did on Sunday. But usually it's 2 shows a week. And on the first show, we kind of cover more than one topic, and it's a little more of a broad topic. We'll cover 1, 2, 3 topics. It changes week to week. And then on Thursday, we'll kind of a bonus episode where it's on a special topic. We take more of a deep dive and we really go into it, or we'll do an interview and learn something more about something that we enjoy. We've done that with the Olympics and golf so far. Both episodes are up on your podcast feed, so just look for them. It's Talking Golf with James and Olympics, so just take a listen to those when you get a chance. But today we're going to talk a little bit about football and baseball. Both sports are kind of heating up in different ways. Football is heating up in the way that's about to get started, and baseball is heating up in the way is that it's heading towards the postseason. The deadline is almost over, and that means it's really time for teams to get going if they want to make the playoffs. And so that's what we are going to talk about on today's episode for baseball. We're going to talk about the postseason race. We're going to make some predictions here. Mine are going to be right, and maybe Griffin's are all going to be wrong, but we will see, and only time will tell. All right, Griffin,
Man, you always start out so positive, asking me how I'm doing, and then you just throw me under the bus there.
Really, it's a great set for the spike where I just kind of hurt your feelings. But anyways, are you ready to talk some baseball?
I'll just have to beat you in my predictions then, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you'll have to. All right, so we're talking playoffs for baseball. We're still a little way from the postseason. How many months away do you think we're away from the postseason, Griffin?
From the postseason?
Yeah, for baseball.
Let's see, what month are we in right now?
We're almost in August. Like, we're on the verge of August.
Oh, man, I'm so bad with calendar months. It goes August, September, October?
Yep.
So about 3 months?
Yeah.
A little less?
Yeah. I think you're about right there.
So I'm gonna say 2 months. 2.5 months.
Okay.
Final answer.
I will accept that as your final answer. Yes, I think we're about 2.5 months away. So it's heating up, but it's also, there's a lot of games left for these teams. So these teams that are kind of at the top of their divisions right now in a really good playoff position might not be there when it comes playoff time. So I think we'll factor that into our predictions as well. So what we're going to do for this episode is we're going to go division by division. So we're going to do the American League first and then National League. So we're going to do this team's going to win this division, this one's going to win that one, this one's going to win that one. These are the 2 wild card teams, and then we'll do the same for the National League. And then we're going to go straight to talking about who we think is going to be in the World Series. So we'll give you who we think is going to come out of each division in each league, and then we'll talk about who we think are going to be the wild card teams. And then we will tell you who we think is going to be in the World Series. So we'll see if we're right or we're super wrong, because both of the teams we select could not even make the playoffs. So this is why it's so fun doing it this early. Griffin did the math, and we're about 56 games away from the postseason. So we're getting close there, folks. All right, Griffin, do you want to start first in the American League with the West Division?
All right, gonna go ahead and start in my home division.
Yep.
So I've got Houston in this one. I mean, they're 8 games ahead currently.
Yep.
They have the second best record in Major League Baseball. I think the rest of the AL West at the moment is not the strongest.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's the weakest, but it's not the strongest, and so that's going to be, who Houston is playing the most in the next 56 games is the AL West teams.
Yep.
So I think this one stays how it is right now, and Houston tops out the AL West.
Yeah, that's my pick as well. I think the A's looked really strong at the beginning of the year, and they're hanging around there in wildcard contention at the moment. But really looking at the standings right now, it does not look like Oakland will be able to catch them, and Houston has looked really strong lately, just like they have the past 2 years. So I think it's really no surprise that they kind of run away with the AL West this year.
Yep. They could run away with the AL East too. I mean,
yeah, if they're that good, yeah. All
Yep.
right. So we'll actually move on to the American League Central. Griffin, who do you have coming out of the American League Central?
All right, so this one's a little bit of a curveball, pun intended. But I'm going to go with, it's probably not that much curveball, but I'm actually going to go with Cleveland right now.
Okay.
They're currently in second place. They're 2 games back from Minnesota.
Yep.
I just think Minnesota started out so strong, and we're starting to see them regress a little bit.
Okay.
And I just don't think they'll finish out the year with the same power that they started with. So I think Cleveland will end up catching them, and Minnesota will fall out of there. So Cleveland tops the AL Central for me.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong pick. I could see it happening, but what I also see happening right now is Minnesota, they have not been great for a long time. And so for a while, they were the number 1 team in the American League, and they've been very good this year. And so I think it's kind of a shock to the organization. So I think they're kind of plateauing at the moment, but I think they're going to pick it up here in the next couple weeks. So I think they'll hold off, and I think the Minnesota Twins will win the American League Central.
All right. First different pick right there. We'll see who ends up being right there.
Yeah, we'll switch it up. All right, so now it's my home division in the American League. The American League East, the best division in all of baseball. Who do you have coming out of the American League East, Griffin?
So, unfortunately, I've got the Yankees coming out on top. They're 8.5 games ahead of Tampa Bay, 9 games ahead of Boston. They've got the 3rd best record in baseball right now. They've just been doing so well, even despite their star players being injured for a good chunk of the year. I can't see them slipping up now. So I think they'll finish the year strong and take the AL East pretty easily.
Yeah, unfortunately, I kind of have to agree with you there. Looking at it now, I still think Boston might be able to pull out on top here if everything goes their way. They do play the Rays and the Yankees a lot in these final 56 games, so they have a lot of opportunities in order to come out on top. I just don't know if they will. The Red Sox did dominate the Yankees this past weekend, but Boston has a lot of question marks in the bullpen, and unless they can fix them at the trade deadline, I don't think they'll catch them, and they might not even make it to the wild card spot, but we'll get to that in a second. So I think the Yankees will come out on top. They're currently at an 8.5 game lead over the Rays, 9 over the Red Sox, so unfortunately I think the Yankees will walk away with AL East title this year.
I have to agree with you.
Awesome. All right, so now it's time for 2 wild card picks. Would you like to go first with selecting one of your 2 teams that will be going to the wild card round of the MLB playoffs?
Sure. So this is my first pick is going to be Minnesota. I think they'll fall out of first place in the AL Central, but I do think they're going to be strong enough to make a playoff push.
Okay.
Because kind of like you said earlier, like they're a team that's not used to being in this position.
Yeah.
So I think they are going to give it all they've got to make the playoffs. Okay. At the very least.
Yep.
We already saw them snatch up Sergio Romo from the Marlins to kind of boost their bullpen a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think they capture that first AL wild card spot.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's really strong. Now, kind of staying in AL Central for mine is Cleveland. I think Cleveland is very strong, and they've been very strong the past couple of years. I think they'll end very close to Minnesota, so I think they also get a wild card spot as well.
So we just flip-flopped those, huh?
Yeah, we definitely did. It was like a one different pick, and then we kind of flip-flopped them to be matching.
All right, so I'll go ahead and give my second spot. This is honestly going off of just the fan base in general and kind of the atmosphere but Boston, I'm going to choose Boston as my second wild card team, just because they just always seem to pull it out somehow. So they're only a game back right now out of the wild card spot. The only team that's really in between them is the Tampa Bay Rays, and like you said, they're going to play them quite a few times. So I think as long as they can win that matchup over the next 2.5 months, they can get that second wild card spot.
Yeah, this is going to shock most of my family and friends who know me as a Red Sox fan, but I agree with Griffin. I think unless and there's a chance. I think they play the Yankees almost 10 more times, and they play the Rays something like 6 or 8 more times. That's a lot when you're that close in playoff. So there's a easy chance it could be the Rays instead of the Red Sox. I think both are very talented teams, and the Red Sox have been great in spots. Offensively, they've been fantastic. They're first in almost every offensive category in the American League, but I think they're towards the bottom of almost every pitching category. Chris Sale has not looked himself, and the bullpen is making blowouts look a lot closer than they are, as we saw this past weekend. The Red Sox are desperate to find a closer, and they really want to try out Nathan Eovaldi, who they recently just signed for a pretty lucrative deal in the offseason as their closer, which I'm a big fan of Nathan Eovaldi, but I don't know if he's a closer, and the Red Sox probably need to just go out and get a closer, but I don't know if they're willing to do that right now, and their whole playoff run kind of depends on the bullpen not giving up the offense's lead.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We kind of mentioned this off the air, but we gave thought to the Angels potentially making some sort of wild push at the end, just because they've been pretty hot since the All-Star break and since the passing of Tyler Skaggs. So they are a team to keep an eye on over the next few months, just to see if they can make some magic happen.
I think so, and not only do they have the Tyler Skaggs death, I think they also have that they don't believe in us mentality. No one's talking about the Yankees. I was looking at standings the other day, and I was like, they're kind of close to the wild card teams. Why aren't people really talking about them? And I think it's because they already wrote them off. Mike Trout is having another MVP caliber year. He'll probably win MVP this year for the American League. And if he can propel that into a playoff run, it helps his legacy, and I think Angel fans would absolutely love it.
Oh, yes, we would.
You heard it here first, folks. All right, so now we're heading to the National League, and we're going to do the same thing there, except we're going to go kind of the opposite way. So we're going to go east first instead of west first. So do you have any predictions for who's going to come out of the National League East Division?
Yep, so I think the National League is a little more up in the air
I agree.
As a whole.
Yeah.
So for the NL East, I have Atlanta coming out on top on that division. They've got a 5.5 game lead right now over Washington, 6.5 game lead over Philadelphia. I think they can just cruise. Maybe not cruise, maybe not be the right word, but I think they can hold their ground and come out on top in the NL East.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think. So my gut, and I don't know why my gut's telling me this. It feels wrong just looking at the standings and seeing what I've seen of this team, but I think the Philadelphia Phillies will come out on top. I feel wrong saying it, but there's just something in my gut. They're only 6 games back right now, so it's not impossible with 56 games left, and most of a lot of their matchups are within their division. So I think they can pull it together. They have a really talented team. Their ceiling was really high going into the season. They made some big offseason moves, and they've kind of faltered so far. But it'd be pretty sweet to see Bryce Harper get his mojo back and that team do really well and turn it into winning the NL East.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot of ground to make up, so they'll have to really put their foot on the gas pedal.
Right, yeah. And maybe they will, but they might not.
All right, shall we move to the NL Central?
Let's do it. All right, you want to go first for the NL Central?
Sure. This one's the closest division, I think, at the moment.
Yeah.
Got 3 teams battling for the division title. Chicago Cubs, St. Louis, and Milwaukee.
Yep.
I'm going to go with reigning oh my gosh, I'm having trouble speaking tonight.
Words are hard.
Reigning MVP Christian Yelich, Milwaukee Brewers to top out the NL Central.
Yeah, you actually I feel like you almost stole my entire sentence. I was going to say when talking about the NL Central, I was going to say...
Well, it pays to go first, man.
It definitely does, and I am now poor. I think the Milwaukee Brewers will pull it out. I think it's going to be really close towards the end. These are three very talented teams, and their records would be much better if they did not have to play each other all the time. So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens towards the end. But when you have an MVP on your team, usually it helps you out quite a bit. So I think the Milwaukee Brewers will get a boost from that. All right, let's head out west. California and other teams.
And others.
And others.
Oh, wow, I'm looking now and seeing how far the Rockies are back.
Yeah.
After they had a great year last year. So NL West, easy. Dodgers, unfortunately.
Yep.
They have a 14.5 game lead over San Francisco.
Ridiculous.
I just don't think there's any way they slip up. They have the best record in Major League Baseball at the moment.
Yep.
So it's just an easy pick.
Right. I agree with you 100%. And you mentioned the Rockies there. The Rockies, they were like at one point only 4 or 5 games back of the Dodgers in first place. This was end of May, early June. And they have just kind of really faltered now, and they're in last place, 49-57. They are 19.5 games back, which is kind of funny because you just mentioned second place San Francisco is only 14.5. Colorado is still technically in it for second place in the division if they can cover those 5 games, but they're nowhere near the wild card at this point.
Right. Their kind of postseason dreams are going out the window, I think.
Yep.
This season, at least.
Yeah, I'd agree with you as well, which is kind of a bummer because hopes were pretty high this offseason, but they were just not able to get the job done. All right, so I think it's time for wild card time. Who do you have as your first team coming out of the National League in the wild card?
So this one actually might be this one I think will be different than what you've got.
Okay.
I've got Washington Nationals making it out on the first spot, purely on the basis of I think they're really gunning to prove that they don't need Bryce Harper. Or they don't, like, they just didn't need him, and kind of have, something more to play for there. So I think they're going to use that mentality and edge out Philadelphia for the wild card, and then ultimately get that first spot.
Yeah, that's a really good prediction. That is very different from what I have. My first one is the St. Louis Cardinals. We mentioned there's a 3-way tie for first in the NL Central right now. They're one of those 3 teams. I think they're very strong. I watched them for the first time the other night. They are just a well-rounded baseball team, and so I believe they'll make it to the wild card round of the playoffs.
Fair enough. Yeah. So moving on, I don't have the St. Louis Cardinals making the playoffs. I have the Chicago Cubs coming in on the last wild card spot. I think they've got a more well-rounded team. They've been there, done that. I think they're hungry for another World Series championship. I know the St. Louis Cardinals have been there and done that too, but I am choosing Chicago over their rivals in the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and I also have the Cubs. I think the NL Central is going to have 3 of the 5 playoff teams for the National League. They're a very strong division this year, and I think all 3 are very well-rounded clubs. I almost said Cubs, and then I try to correct myself. Anyways, the Chicago Cubs, I feel like Joe Madden is on a bit of a hot seat. He won that World Series, and he's kind of faltered the 2 seasons afterwards, and I think he needs to prove himself this year. Getting into at least the NLCS, if not the World Series, would definitely get him off that hot seat for now. But we'll see what happens come playoff time. So those are our predictions. And now we're going to predict the World Series. So we're not going to do all these rounds. We're not going to go game by game. So right here, Trevor Story gets a home run. Nope, we're going to just tell you who we think is going to go to the World Series. Do you want to tell our listeners who you think is going to come out of the National League, Griffin?
National League, I unfortunately think it's going to be the Dodgers for a third year in a row. They have the best record in baseball. They've done it the last 2 years. They kind of have unfinished business. I just think they're too strong of a team that I can't really see anyone beating them in a 5 or 7 game series.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and that's why I also have them as my team coming out of the National League. They are far and away the best team record-wise, and I think talent-wise as well. For the past 3 years, they have been arguably the best team in baseball. I just wonder how Dave Roberts and company are going to be able to switch it up this time around, but that's a discussion for a different day. All right, Griffin, who do you have coming out of the American League in your World Series?
Yeah, so I think the AL is going to be a little more competitive.
I agree.
For the World Series spot, but I have Houston coming out of the American League, and I have Houston winning over the Dodgers in 7 games. That's what I think is going to happen. I think Houston's, after one off year, I think they're finally strong enough again to come out and be the best team in baseball.
Yeah, I think that's really solid, and I don't have Houston. I think Houston will probably make it pretty far, but I really like what I see in these Minnesota Twins. So I think the Minnesota Twins are going to make it all the way to the World Series.
Really?
And yeah, I just watching them play. Sometimes you watch these teams and you can almost you're like, oh, this would make a really good World Series DVD. And sometimes those teams are able to make it happen, and they seem like one of those teams. I mentioned when talking about the Angels, I really believe in this they don't believe in us mentality and how much it propels teams. When a team buys into the fact that they believe that no one believes in them, I think it does wonders, and I think Minnesota's been playing that way all season. I don't think anyone in preseason had them as high as they are right now, and definitely not World Series contenders, which they definitely are at this point in the season. And then I think they're going to beat the Dodgers in 6 games. I don't think Dave Roberts can coach in the World Series, and this could be kind of a spicy topic, but he can coach really well in the regular season, but he just loses his mojo in the World Series, and I don't think he would change that in the 2019 World Series.
I gotta look up odds to see what they're at, because you might need to put money on this if you're really that serious about it. It might take me a while to find something, but
yeah,
this is as of January 11th. So that's way too early, but
yeah,
16-1 at the beginning of the year.
Okay,
I don't know what they're at now, but
yeah, it would be interesting to
look
into.
Probably at like 6 or 7-1.
Yeah,
you might need to look into that one.
Yeah,
if you're that confident.
Yeah, we'll see. I might just shave my head instead, but we'll see how confident I am. Yeah, so that's our World Series predictions and playoff predictions, and obviously this will all change in the next 56 games, or it won't, and we'll look like geniuses. So either way, we'll be happy with the results talking about this. Anything you want to add about Major League Baseball as we're kind of heading into this final stretch of games?
I just can't wait for the playoffs. I think that's easily the most exciting point of the season, and just even like the week leading up to the playoffs usually gets really exciting, because those are the final games where teams are trying to, sneak into the playoffs, and that's really when teams need to get hot and make a run, because we've seen it plenty of times where, the team with the best record doesn't win, and it's just the team that's playing the best baseball in October.
Yeah, you're right, and I think it's going to be really exciting this year, and it will be fun to see so many different teams in the mix a little bit. So we'll see what happens come playoff time. All right, so that's it for baseball, and we're on to football. So camps have started for almost every single NFL team now. Some teams started earlier, some teams started later than others. We're going to talk a little bit about camp, and then we're going to talk about the first preseason game, which is this Thursday, which is kind of hard to believe that we're actual football is being played. But before we get into that, Griffin, in this week of camps pretty much actively going, have you seen anything interesting, read anything interesting about camp?
Yeah, I have. just, some major news of bad news, it looks like, for the Cincinnati Bengals with A.J. Green having some sort of ankle injury that required him to be carted off during one of the training camp days.
Okay.
It looks like he's set to miss at least 4 weeks, and maybe all the way up to 8 weeks, which is just a huge blow to Cincinnati's offense. And the other headline I saw was the Giants wide receiver core is getting a few different injuries and suspensions that's going to cause 3 different guys to not start week 1. Let's see, I got the list here. You got Sterling Shepard with a thumb injury. Golden Tate got a 4-game suspension, and then Corey Coleman got an ACL tear injury, which is going to see him out for the whole year.
Oh, wow.
Just these sort of things just kind of beg the question of, what kind of formula can these teams come up with to get these players ready to play a game where they're basically designed to get hurt, because football is so physical and these guys are so big and athletic that, like, it just seems like people get hurt every single year, and these are huge injuries to all these guys. And, we haven't even hit the first round of preseason games. So I feel like there's got to be a more efficient way to get these guys game ready for the season without, causing so many injuries.
I think you're probably right, but I think teams are also kind of in tune to that. So I do know teams do less contact practices leading up to games, and definitely in this preseason and training camp. But the hard thing is also they need to see these players hit, because they're going to hit in real games. If they don't hit in practice in a safe space, then who knows what they're going to do in a game. So it's really hard to evaluate, which especially with these training camps, there's 50-something roster spots, and there's 90-plus guys vying for those 50-something roster spots at camps. And so they definitely need this contact. And I think teams even try this non-contact approach, almost like flag football, helmets, but no pads. And you still see injuries come out of it all the time. Achilles tears, MCL tears, ACL tears, broken knees. All these different things have happened in training camp, and some of them not contact. And so maybe the NFL starts too soon before the season, because we're talking first games aren't starting until September, and teams are already pretty deep into practices at this point, getting ready for the season. I don't think there's a perfect solution, but I think it's probably you don't make contact until you absolutely have to. And so that's game weeks, you do a little bit of contact, but really this sport was not built for long-term careers. It was built for kind of entertaining to watch, and there'll probably be a lot of people hurt on the way. Do you have any ideas on how they could solve it?
When I asked, when I said there's got to be a better way, right, that was kind of a rhetorical question in the sense of I think you're absolutely right, where there really isn't an easy solution to this, because I just think the nature of football is just so physical, and you're prone to injury no matter what you do, whether you're doing non-contact or contact, because there are so many non-contact injuries that happen as well as the contact ones for obvious reasons. I don't know if it's a matter of reducing the number of preseason games. I don't know if people are happy with having 4 preseason games. I could see why 4 is a good number, because a lot of these guys that are getting reps aren't taking reps the whole game. They're just taking reps for a quarter. And there's so many, like you said, so many people fighting for, X amount of roster spots that they do need to see all these people getting, 20% of the reps of the game. So I don't know if the sports science for these teams needs to get more investment or something to help protect, the routines of these players and their bodies. But it kind of bums me out when I see a lot of these guys get injured before the season even starts and they don't even get a chance to play.
Yeah, for sure. And especially we're going to be talking about this Hall of Fame game. These teams play 5 preseason games instead of the normal 4, because this game is just an add-on game instead of you just play this one earlier. So Broncos and Falcons are more prone to injuries too. And Yeah, it's why do we need 5 preseason games either? This could be its own episode of the NFL's practices and are they the best practices for team health. But do you want to start talking about this Thursday's Hall of Fame game?
So I actually don't know much about the Hall of Fame game at all, and I was wondering if you could explain to me, as well as any of our listeners that don't know what the Hall of Fame game is.
Right, yeah. So we talked a little bit about this off air, and I was hoping there was a rich story background about it. Not really. It's mostly a game built to get people out to Canton, Ohio for the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, interestingly enough. So it's traditionally the first game played in the NFL preseason for any given year, and it's usually marking the end of the NFL's 6-month offseason. So the NFL uses it as their unofficial kickoff date there will be football every single week until February from this point on. And so it's kind of their way of saying, we're here to stay for the next couple months. And I did find traditionally back in the day until about 2010, it would be an AFC team and one NFC team. They're usually kind of the original 8. So the game usually paired 2 AFC teams who are part of the original 8 franchises. They've kind of done a bunch of different things, and I think it's to sell tickets. They built a stadium in Canton, Ohio. There's no team in Canton, Ohio, just for this game, and it is usually a lot earlier than the rest of the preseason games. I don't think there's another preseason game for 7 or 8 days or so. So this one is supposed to be like very significant. Recently, they've trying to get players, the players who are inducted, the teams they played for, play in the Hall of Fame game. So the Broncos and the Falcons are in it this year. Both had notable members of their franchises enter the Hall of Fame this year. But to me, it's mostly unnecessary. But I guess some people like it. The tickets are kind of expensive. I accidentally clicked on a ticket page and I was like, that's a lot for a very preseason game. So it's not a surprise you were unaware of the Hall of Fame game and its lack of significance. But it does mark the start of the football season, which gets a lot of people excited. And if you're a fan of the Broncos like I am, the Broncos have a couple exciting things coming their way. We'll get to see a lot of the young quarterbacks and a lot of the young guys. No starters and no even close to being starters are going to play in this game. They've made it clear the second stringer for the Broncos right now, he's starting, third string, and then their fourth string will finish the game off. So you don't have to worry about injuries too much here. But it's mostly just getting the rookies and the guys who want to earn roster spots a chance to prove themselves before more cuts are made in the next couple weeks. So, yeah, that's about it for the Hall of Fame game. I don't expect it to be an exciting game. I'm guessing a lot of turnovers, but it will be exciting to have football back.
Just from the way you described it, it sounds like it's going to be more of an experience as a whole, just being in the realm of the Hall of Fame and museum as well as the stadium,
right?
Because I'm looking at the price of the tickets right now for the first time, and they range from $69 to $199, which for the value of what the actual game on the field is going to be,
100%
is really high. Yeah,
you're not
like you said.
You won't be able to see Matt Ryan, Von Miller, any of the guys you would pay $69 to $199 to see. So that's
right. Yeah. Definitely seems like a money grab, but if the NFL can pull it off, then why not?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how full the stadium is. It seems like in years past they've had pretty good crowds, but I don't think people plan their vacations around heading to Canton, Ohio to watch the Hall of Fame game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.
All right, awesome. So that does it for this week's Nate's Notes. Thank you guys so much for listening. If there's anything you'd like to hear more of, please let us know on any of our social media pages. You can find us at Notes Nates, and you can also send us an email at natesnotespodcast@gmail.com. We'd love your suggestions. If you like when we talk about football, you can let us know. If you like when we talk about baseball, let us know. If you want us to make up a sport and talk about it, we can probably do that for you. Just let us know on social media or through email. And we appreciate all of you subscribing to the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, giving us 5 stars, and telling your friends and telling your friends' friends. It really helps us, and we've been seeing a little bit of a growth here. So we appreciate everyone who's enjoyed it and who is sharing the wealth with others. So thanks again, and we will see you on Thursday.